Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns, and this is another episode of Career Advice. Today I want to talk about mentors and anti-mentors. Now, this is a topic that, everyone kind of talks about. Find a mentor. You're the sum of the five people you hang around with most. And in general, that's probably true, especially if you're a follower. If you happen to be a leader, that might be a different case. Or if you might have, your own set view of life and determination, it really doesn't matter who you hang around with. What I'm talking about is being able to learn from others, meaning that when you look around at your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, anybody that you're in contact with, other than the fake celebrities on social media. Why stay away from them? Because what they're presenting is a polished view of their life to market you their product. And so you can't take it as reality, because if you think reality TV is reality, then you might want to reevaluate that, because it's totally scripted. Now, why does this matter? Okay, why does it matter? Because a genius learns from others' mistakes. A wise man learns from his own, and an idiot has to repeat his mistakes to learn them, or never learns from them. So be a genius, meaning learn from others' mistakes. And let's give you some examples. We obviously the mentor person, that person who might be 5, 10, 20, 30 years ahead of you in their career or in their field that you want to be in. And that person knows the things that you want to know. They've done the things that you want to do. They've made the mistakes that you don't want to make. And if you can find that person either directly, which is not really easy, hey, will you be my mentor? Or maybe you intern for them. Maybe you befriend them. Maybe you interview them. Maybe you just get to know them and ask, to take them to lunch or dinner once a quarter. Whatever form it takes, or maybe you just read about them or watch them. But even being careful about reading about them, because it's one person's perspective on their life. And, like take Steve Jobs, so many people glorify him, but is that really the lifestyle that you want? For good or bad, whatever, and I'm judging. I'm just trying to point out, because there are mentors, and a lot of people try and mentor not just the good, but the bad parts of people too. The arrogance and the rudeness and the insensitivity and stuff. But what you really want to do is see the consequences of certain actions. And that's why I'm talking about anti-mentors can be just as powerful, if not more powerful, than mentors. An anti-mentor is somebody that you look at and you go, not for me. And you see the mistakes that they make over and over again. Especially age gives you this vantage point. It's like being able to step back and see the whole picture instead of just that one snapshot. And a great exercise, especially if you have a smartphone and you happen to take a lot of photos, is to fly through it. And I don't mean by picture. I mean, really year by year, if you've had the phone that long. It's a great exercise to kind of give you a sense of how you feel about time. Because I've done it as an exercise. Because you're trying to remember now. Now, was that 5 years ago or 4 years ago? And what I found was, at least for me, 1 year goes by very fast. 2 years is much more manageable. 3 years is kind of what I feel a great strategic point for me. Yours might be more, like college is 4 years, high school's 4 years. And then typically when you get out and get into a job, things move super fast because you're growing really fast. They don't, expectations are also very low. But then what happens is when you get in your 30s, it tends to slow down because you've kind of hit a pinnacle where you're really good at something and you're not getting that exponentially better at it every year the way you did in your 20s. So think about, some people go, oh, I'm planning 40 years in advance. Well, maybe 2 or 3 years is a better vantage point for you. Maybe you can have that long-term view. But getting back to mentors and anti-mentors. Anti-mentors are super powerful because when you see them, when it might be somebody in your family, it might be somebody in the companies or a friend of a friend, where you see their life fall apart off of basically things that they had control over. Certainly we can't control if a car hits us or a plane crash or some, uncontrollable disease or something, those things outside of our control. But so much of it is inside of our control that we self-inflict. Poor diet, lack of exercise, the 7 deadly sins, whatever they are, trying to live too much fun in your 20s or not having enough fun. And you get to see it and judge for yourself. So this is maybe more life advice than career advice, but it applies to your career as well, where you see the people like let's take like a heavy hourly job, like management consultant, accounting, lawyers, that type of thing, where you basically work 80 hours a week. You travel home on Friday morning or Friday night. You basically do laundry, take a nap, and then you're heading to the airport on Sunday. And, I lived that for a very short period of time. But I did live on the road as a traveling sales guy for most of my career. It wasn't 100% of the time. It was probably, a little less than 50, but it wears on you. And I got the best story I have is an anti-mentor. I was in the Ottawa airport coming back from a great sales call, and you go through customs, and I'm ready to come back to the U.S. back home, and it was 5, 6 o'clock at night, and you look at the bar and you see someone who was clearly in the same field as I was in sales, and he was good 20, maybe 30 years older than me. And the suit was kind of worn, and he didn't seem very happy. He was drinking a lot. And I remember, talking to my colleague, and we kind of looked at each other, and we kind of both said to it, that's not going to become me. And that moment, now that guy, I never met him, became an anti-mentor for me. That picture of, I don't want to be having to do this 20 or 30 years from now. I want different choices for my life. So, I changed my spending habits, my working habits, in my skill set, so that you don't get stale, you don't start getting into that downward spiral, which happens in sales quite often, where you work your way up to like an A job, but for some reason it doesn't work out, or they sell the company, and the math no longer works. You can't really make money there. And then you go and you think you're going to another A job, but it turns out to be a B job. And that goes okay, but something bad goes there. And then all of a sudden you think you're taking another B job, and it turns into a C job. And I've seen this downward spiral, and you got to get out of it very quickly in the sales profession and get back into a B to an A job again. Because otherwise you just get sucked up, and that's naturally what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. They start taking worse and worse jobs. They start to lower their rates. They start to hire less and less qualified people. Now, this is the power of the anti-mentor. The anti-mentor will show you what you don't want your life to turn into. The mentor, and if you listen to them, if you really open your ears and take their feedback, if you really say, tell me what I'm doing wrong, Don't ask them to tell you what to do because they don't want that ownership. And things change. They're not you. The world's changed. The world's going to change. And sometimes it's obvious what to do and what not to do. You know, if you don't have the money, maybe you don't want to take a gap year. Maybe you want to get a job. If you are brilliant, maybe you do want to pursue your education to the full extent. If, you know, a great startup wants you and, you know, they're going to give you a big chunk of equity, maybe it might be worth taking a chance on. And go back to my episode about how to manage your career like a financial advisor. When you're young, you can take all these risks. But as you get older, you put your money into more and more secure things because you don't have time to recover from mistakes. So finding mentors and looking for good people to hang around with. I'm not of the school. If you've got some goof-off friends, just identify them as goof-off friends, and they're there for the weekend. Doesn't mean that you have to be like them. And if they are offended of your success or your happiness, then that's their issue, not yours. But just observe. Just by observing what you see happen to people over the years, things that they had control of, not inheritance, but, you know, what did they do? You know, what I noticed, I'll give you some examples. I noticed people who were entrepreneurial did much better than people who were employed. Okay, I noticed that. And the tax benefits in the U.S. for being an entrepreneur versus an employee are unbelievably different. It's totally set up for entrepreneurs and totally set up against being an employee. Some other things I noticed is that people who had fewer kids looked younger and lived better. So that's a choice. You know, the people who had 4 or 5 kids, their lives were hard. People who exercised and ate well certainly lived longer and better, healthier, and looked a whole lot better. People who were optimistic and were flexible did a lot better than those that were rigid and angry or difficult. Those who partied too much in their 20s didn't do so good later in their career. But those who didn't party at all didn't turn out to be much fun either. So there's this balance, and that's why I think each of us has to own it. Own the choices that we make, observe the mistakes other people make, and the brilliant moves they make as well. And try and work those into our lives, and to be conscious about it and proactive about it. Too many of us are like little leaves in the wind, being blown around by the forces of nature instead of the bird deciding where you want to go and going there. We've got to be that bird going where we want to go and not just being at the whim of the wind. Because we don't want to end up just where the wind blows us. We want to end up where we want to go and consciously think about that and work towards it. So, you know, find at least 1 or 2 mentors and probably like 3 anti-mentors. And what's really good is if you could find them 5, 10, 20 years older than you, so that you can kind of get a sense of the ripple effect of the choices that they've made in their lives and how it's played out, good and bad, and see how they play out into what you want. Hope this has been helpful. I hope I haven't rambled too much. Check me out on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out, Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. Also, my website, B, the letter or the number 2, B2B, revenue.com. Got a free ebook there. Got a couple of courses if you ever want to get into sales or you know somebody who does. Thanks for listening.